This is the story about how I became an intactivist. The first realization that something was done to me, to my body, was probably around age 9. I had gone with a friend and his father to a steam bathhouse when we were kids, and that was the first time I had seen an uncircumcised penis. And I remember coming home and asking my mother about it, and she had said to me that it was part of a Jewish ritual, that where they cut the foreskin away, and then proceeded to tell me that it was cleaner and that it was better. And trusting my mother, I accepted. Okay, it's better, and didn't think much more about it. I guess I had thought about it, obviously, masturbating as a kid, like most guys, maybe like what would it have been like, but not really giving it any more deeper thought than that. The next time was when I moved to San Francisco in the mid-'80s, and wound up having sex with a guy who was from the Netherlands, and his father was a doctor also, as was mine. I remember watching him masturbate. Now, this is in the early days of AIDS, and sex between two men was pretty much mutual masturbation. I remember watching him masturbate and getting this wave of sorrow over me that something was, taken away from me. There's obviously what I've learned to believe to be true, an erogenous mechanism, which is laden with nerve cells, which obviously has corresponding places in the brain. I thought about it every now and then, but was quiet about the issue until the early 90s, when I had taken a human sexuality course at the College of Marin. And it was the end of the class, and the prof was talking about female genital mutilation. And there was like a minute or two left in the class, and the teacher said, and some people consider circumcision to be genital mutilation. And the bell rang and the class emptied, and I went home stewing. I was thinking about this. I eventually confronted the teacher and asked him how many penises he had handled. He said, well, many in anatomy. I said, but they're dead. And he agreed that there would have been a difference. He didn't want to hear hearsay. He wanted valid studies, so I brought what was most up-to-date, British Journal of Urology, the Dr. Ritter book. And eventually I swayed him to the point where he said he doesn't talk about circumcision the way that he did anymore. I had a neighbor who knew I was Jewish and came up to me very proud that she had taken her child to a Jewish doctor to be circumcised, and I just said, why? And obviously it was done. The damage was done to him as it was to me. Once it's done, it's done. And didn't push the issue anymore with her, but was complaining to my partner at the time, about my experience in class. And he had told me that there's a book called The Joy of Uncircumcising. And it took me a few weeks to say, okay, I'm going to go check this book out. I went into the store, found the book, and I found some other books. And one was a small book of men who were circumcised as adults, telling their sad story about how they felt either being forced in the military or forced by a parent as a teenager to be circumcised, what was missing. And their words confirmed what I had believed about my own body. And I kind of sat on the floor and cried in this bookstore. As time went on, I became more angry. And I guess at one point I called being raised Jewish. I'm not very religious, but I called the rabbi at the gay synagogue, who was a gay person at the time, and he wasn't having anything. He wouldn't hear my, that I was harmed, that I believed that I was harmed by and mutilated, and that my rights were taken away. So I was getting more angry as the phone call went on, and I said something that there was no difference between Amoil and Joseph Mengele, the concentration camp doctor who used the Jews as guinea pigs, and the rabbi got very upset, saying, oh, you must take that back, you must take that back. I said, definitely not, and I hung up. From that phone call, I decided that I was not going to be quiet about this. I had plastered the back of my car with anti-circumcision stickers and put Moyle equals Mengele in huge block letters on the back of my car. I wouldn't do that today, and I don't apologize for having used those words. I think that Jews really need to think about this a little bit more clearly. This was my body that was used in some Jewish ritual. I guess most importantly, I spoke with my father about this, and he's a doctor. He was a doctor, and he sobbed when I brought this up. I asked him, as a Jewish physician, where are the medical ethicists? Are they looking the other way on this issue? And he just sobbed. He did get it. He does understand that it was wrong, and that he gave his name to DOC, which is an acronym for Doctors Opposed to Circumcision.